Finally, we have the iPhone 15 Pro Max in the building, and I'm excited to take this out to test the camera and see what it's capable of after that keynote. We're going to be comparing it to the Pixel 7 Pro. This is also still current up until the 4th of October where we get the Pixel 8 Pro. And we're also going to be comparing it with, obviously, the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, which is probably the reigning champion of photography, whatever. Well, I could be biased, but let's have a look at the specs and then we'll go outside and test them out. All right, so we have our rig set up. As you can see there, we have the iPhone 15 Pro Max in the middle, the S23 Ultra on the far right, and the Pixel 7 Pro on the far left here. Okay, as we always do, let's go straight into it and talk about the photos that we've taken today. We've done some videos as well, talk about stabilization, focus speeds, and so much more. But starting with some general photos that we've got in front of us here. So this is just a general landscape photo, just to test some dynamic range on the shots itself. So this is ultra wide angle lens on all the cameras. And as you can see, usually on the normal level, ultra wide angle usually struggles in general anyway, but it's nice to see the level of improvement that we have here. So for example, the iPhone looks good, but it's a bit dark compared to the other one. So it's struggling a bit with dynamic range there, but it still looks good. I think it looks natural as much as it can do. The Samsung just overblows everything and it's a lot more saturated, which we know of Samsung as always. And then we look at the Pixel 7 Pro. This one struggles quite a lot. There's less detail, it's losing detail there. It's struggling with actually processing that image and making it balanced. So there's a lot of like over sharpening here and there just to try and compensate for things. The water looks a bit weird. But I think this one, for me, I'd say the iPhone takes it because it's the one that looks the most natural and you can probably still brighten it up after the fact. And then we go to the main camera, which is your normal wide angle camera. So here we have some shots again testing that dynamic range and how well it handles foreground and the background and all that kind of stuff. So if we look at the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, again we can see that things are a bit overblown and it doesn't quite retain the level of contrast that I would like when I'm taking my photos. The iPhone here for me does very well with the kind of contrast level, the shadows and all that stuff. I like what it's done there. But again, in this day and age, most people probably go for that Samsung. And I can tell already that in the comments, people say the Samsung is better in this one. The Pixel 7 Pro looks generally just nicely balanced. So it's not too dark, it's not too bright. The blues in the sky are not overblown in terms of saturation. So that's really good. So let me know what you think in the comments below for this one. But I think I'd go for the iPhone on this one again. Next up, we'll look at some telephoto lens performance here. So the issue that we have is the Pixel 7 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max both do 2x optical zoom. The S23 goes straight 3x optical zoom. So we've just stuck it at what the manufacturers have provided rather than trying to pinch it out and stuff like that. So if we look at what we have here, we can see that the S23 Ultra suffers a lot here in terms of the level of quality that you get as a result of that. So if you look at it, it just doesn't look that good or eye-pleasing. It looks pixelated and it just doesn't look as detailed as I like it to be. We look at the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it looks very well balanced again, going on the darker side again, so the sky, the grays and stuff just looks a bit more darker compared to the Pixel 7 Pro, which again looks nice and balanced in terms of the level of brightness, level of contrast and shadows. I quite like that. You can even see like the color of the boat looks much better in terms of that yellow. It just pops and looks really nice. We look at the orange detail on the boats here towards the foreground, looks really good as well. So for me, I think Pixel 7 Pro here. And then moving on to 5x, the iPhone 15 Pro Max now has 5x optical zoom, which uses a periscope lens. You can actually notice it as well when you look at the device itself. You can sort of notice it on the lens, which is pretty cool when you see it. But looking at the detail here, we can see that the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 7 Pro looks really good in terms of the level of detail. It looks very natural. The colors, the browns looks very good. The dynamic range as well. If you look on the far end, you can see the sky looks very natural as well. The S23 Ultra, we've had to pinch it to 5x just to match the rest of them. And in this case, you can see that digitization of the whole thing, it just doesn't look really good at all. And then to make it fair, we decided to go on Pixel 7 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max and stick to their maximum focal length, so 5x zoom, and then leave the S23 Ultra at 10x, which is what it does after 3x. So we can see here that the Samsung looks much better in terms of giving you a lot of detail that you can play with. You can sort of read the writing on the building even much better compared to the other ones on their 5x zoom. Both darker on the Pixel 7 Pro and the 15 Pro Max. They look darker, the details are lacking as well. It just doesn't have a nice separation between the sky and the building as well. So you can't really tell the depth. Almost looks like some sort of painting, oil painting really. And then we take it just a bit further and just get the maximum zoom that we can get in terms of digital zoom, just to see if we can still use it. Obviously, most people would never do that, but if you look at this, you can see on the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, you can still make out the faces. In fact, if God forbid any of these people go missing, you still be able to find out if they were on that boat on that day, compared to say the Pixel 7 Pro, where you can hardly make out who's on that boat. The same people, you're looking at them, you're thinking that's completely someone different. And on the iPhone, it just looks like an oil painting. Look at the water, look at the shirt on the man on there. It just doesn't look pleasing at all. So this is probably not something that you'd use if you have the other devices, but S23 Ultra, you could definitely use that on that device. And then we move on to the highest resolution you can get on the devices as well. So obviously iPhone 15 Pro now allows you to use that 24 megapixels straight out of the box, or you can shoot a bit higher as well. But that aside, in terms of numbers, what we're looking at here is the result of what you get. So the Pixel 7 Pro, again, retains a lot of detail, very good in terms of when you pinch in and you go into the shot, it looks good still. The Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra looks good as well, but again, oversaturated and all that stuff. One thing that was funny for me though is the 15 Pro Max struggled to focus and pick what it wanted to focus on. So it ended up focusing on the foreground head that's right in front of me, rather than looking at the bigger picture of what I actually wanted to take a picture of. I didn't tap on screen on any of them. I didn't do anything like that. So it's quite fascinating to see that that's happened, but I wish that actually focused on the building so I can actually see what's going on. Next up, let's put the selfie cameras to the test. So here we have the wider selfie camera. So if you have more people, you'll be able to get more people in the shots here. You can see what the cameras have done and what it's trying to focus on, and then we'll start talking about skin tones here. So we look at the Pixel 7 Pro. This is good at noticing your skin and giving you a really nice skin tone. So here, that looks really natural. Even my jacket looks like the color that it should be, which is the same jacket I'm wearing right now. So you can see what's going on here. And then we move on to the 15 Pro Max. It's got this hazy look to it. So this sort of like cloudy look to it for some reason. We've wiped the lenses, so we can't say it's fingerprints on the lens. The skin tone still looks good. It's not the best, but it still looks good. And yeah, you can tell it's trying to focus on me rather than what's going on in the background, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And then we look at the S23 Ultra, which just looks like it doesn't know what it's doing. It's like there's a lot of shadow to the left of my face, then the bright light on the right of my face, and then there's the blown out sky in the background, and then my hoodie doesn't even look like the color that it should be. And then onto 1x selfie camera. So here again, it's the same story, it's just closer to the camera. It just retains a bit more detail, but yeah, do with that what you will. Of course, we can't do selfies without selfie portraits as well. And for me here, it's all about the edge detection and how much blur we get in it. I think if we look at all of them, they actually look good. Blur in the background is not an issue there for the devices. Again, it just comes down to the colors and the skin tone and edge detection. So you can see my hoodie colors across them. The Pixel 7 Pro is the only one that gets that right. And then the skin tone, Pixel 7 gets it right. S23 Ultra looks good as well, just adds a bit of warmth and a bit of pop to it. The 15 Pro Max just looks very cold, there's no warmth to it at all. But the edge detection though on all of them I think is pretty good. They've done a really good job there. My left ears is nice to cut out, and the hair strands and stuff just looks really good, so no complaints there at all. On the same portrait note, we go to the main camera lenses. So here is 1x portrait lens. The S23 Ultra has a bit more coverage. But that aside, again, edge detection and color reproduction, we can see that they're all kind of close in terms of the colors, but you did get that sort of cloudy look on the S23 Ultra for some reason. But edge detection though, looks really good on all of them. The hair strands looks good. The Pixel 7 Pro struggles a bit on the right side of my face. You can see there my forehead, it starts to mix it up with the black cloud on top of my head. So that's not good. But other than that, I think they've all done a decent job. The hoodie as well, the color on this looks best on the 15 Pro Max, but that's because it's colder in color temperature, so black looks better. And then we'll move on to 2x, 3x on the S23 Ultra in this case. The S23 Ultra looks very eye-pleasing, but it's overly digitized. It's cut it out really nicely as well. Its separation is really good. The iPhone 15 Pro Max looks very nice in terms of not too much blur, although you can edit things after the fact. But here you can see that, you can see the alignment just cuts out really nice. The edge detection is really good as well on all of them. But the Pixel 7 Pro here just looks like it was shot on potato. I actually don't know what's going on here. It's so pixelated. And then we have 5x portrait mode. The only reason why we only have the 15 Pro Max is because that's the only device that would do optically 5x portrait mode here. So we look at it, I think this is actually my favorite. If I'm going to be taking more portraits, it's going to start to be in 5x as well. Look at it, edge detection, skin tone, everything just looks perfect. Look at the hoodie color. That is a great job for me. And then we move on to low light situation. So as you can see here under these arches, when it comes to low light, I look at things like highlights. So for example, if you look at the light above, the 15 Pro Max looks really good in terms of highlights. It does really well keeping those details there. same as the S23 Ultra, but I had no doubt about the S23 Ultra anyway. And you can still read the text as well up in the distance, but on the 15 Pro Max it's a bit darker in the distance. So it's harder to read what's going on further down the line. We look at the Pixel 7 Pro, I think all round looks good, but the highlights are overblown on the light bulbs and on the sign on the right there. But you can still see the text on the far end and see people's faces as well without looking like an oil painting. So they've all got their good and the bad bits about them, so you decide which you prefer. And then moving on to the ultra wide in low light, again, I think the S23 Ultra and the 15 Pro Max are very much on par. They look good together there in terms of retaining the highlights. The colors are good as well in terms of look at the green beams, so look at actual green, and the purple and the blacks look good there. Pixel 7 Pro, overblown all over the place. 2x zoom in the dark. I wasn't expecting anything fantastic here in the first place, but it does still look good. It's still usable in some sense. You can read the text across the hallway. You can see everything that's going on there. Some bits looks like an oil painting. Some look really good in terms of not looking like an oil painting. But again, decide for yourself here which one you prefer. And then we're punching even further. We've got 5x zoom on two devices, 10x on the S23 Ultra. The 10x there just makes you, I don't know, it doesn't look as good as the 5x on the other ones because everything just looks blurry. There's no sharpness there at all. You can still read the text though. We'll give it to the S23 there, but for the other devices, text looks sharp, people look sharp as well. There's more detail in there. Moving over to video quality, which is what's most important to most of us using these devices. I think this was the most difficult one to actually read into and look at the detail in terms of what I think's gone wrong here or gone right here. I think they've all done amazingly well. It's hard to pick one that's really bad. But one thing that I will pick out though is the S23 Ultra struggles with actually correcting the color of the sky. I think it just looks oversaturated or just looks odd. It doesn't look like the actual color that I was seeing. So the natural colors come out on the Pixel 7 Pro and the 15 Pro Max. Where they all struggle really in a way is when it comes to zoom. When you start zooming into what you're filming and stuff, you start to lose the level of detail, both on my face and the background as well. It doesn't look as sharp. It's got this cloudy feel to it again, which hazy look to it, which I don't like. So the contrast level is not as good again when it comes to the zoom. In general, filming scenario though, when we're just filming on a one-times, like you would on a day-to-day basis, what we find is, again, they all look really good. The colors of the buses and stuff like that, Khalik's hoodie here, the colors are true to life. The dynamic range are really good as well. But you do notice a bit of lens flare on the Pixel 7 Pro, which again, in this day and age, we don't want lens flare like that, iPhone's done well of getting rid of that. Not completely, but in most scenarios, we don't get that level of lens flare that we used to get before on the 14 Pro. Ultra wide angle looks really good as well. You can get a lot more in the shots without losing detail on colors. And I just like it. The level of contrast on there in general and all of them looks really good. One thing we also wanted to check was when you zoom in to check how well this does in terms of stabilization, especially with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which has that 3D sensor shift technology, which means it should be stable when you zoom in at 5x. And the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra does well with that in terms of when you zoom in, it locks into position and you can easily track your subject with no issues at all. And that's the same across all of them. You can see the way that the iPhone handles it very well. It looks like I'm mounting this on a gimbal, which I'm not. It's just nice and steady. I'm just panning along the cruise, the river cruise. You can see the subject clearly. There's no jittering, there's no juddering in terms of trying to find focus or anything like that. It just looks really good. Next, we'll look at focus speed and how well they track things in terms of focusing on your subject. And they do very well in terms of how quickly it does, but I think the iPhone 15 Pro Max is probably the fastest one on there. And there's a nice focus pull as well on all of them, which I quite like. I was expecting one of them to be an issue. The Pixel 7 Pro is probably the one that you get a bit of like a little quick movement that's not quite discerning to the eyes. You have to really look at it. But besides that, I think they all do really well in terms of focusing very quickly, noticing when we want the subject in focus, and then more of the background in focus as well. So I think they do well. Then we go over to a bottle. We can see how well it does here. So again, nice and smooth does it. It doesn't have that sudden jitter. Again, the only one that you notice that on is on the Pixel 7 Pro. Next, we have cinematic mode, and here again we want to test that edge detection. So the intricacies of the cables and the monitor on there, you can see that they're all struggled, but even more so on the Pixel 7 Pro in terms of trying to notice where the edge of the screen, the monitor on the camera is, the dark colors of it struggles with that. But one thing they do well though is being able to pick between the background and the foreground. I love the focus pull here. It's just nice and smooth. You tap it and without even noticing, it just does it really smoothly. And I think all of them does a really good job at doing that. So if you're a creative out there, this could be something that you can try and use and master it if you can. If you're in the right situation, using the right colors, the right lighting environment, you might be able to master that. Moving on to a human subject, so myself, you can see how well it handles it here. So The S23 Ultra struggles sometimes in terms of trying to figure out which one's the background, which one's the foreground. The 15 Pro Max does really well all round compared to the other ones. And the Pixel 7 Pro struggles quite a lot in terms of edge detection, doesn't know the difference between my hair and what's in the background, for example. And then the reflection on the mirrors, so that kind of just confuses it. So they all kind of struggle with darker colors, but there I would say the 15 Pro Max takes it away. And then this is just more general videography in terms of the going landscape here. So we're looking at 16:9 here. So again, it just looks really nice in terms of selecting the right frame rate. So this is 4K at 30 frames per second. So this is an audio sample on the devices. So we have the Pixel 7 Pro. See what that sounds like right now. Let us know what you think in the comments. And then we have the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Let us know what that sounds like in the comments below. And then we have the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. Let us know what that sounds like below as well. Obviously, in a normal London environment, everything's just nice and loud. There's a lot going on. So yeah, let's know what you think. So right now, this is the selfie camera. Let's know what you think about the audio as well. So I think so far, I'm looking at the Samsung and things look a bit blown out in the background. It's trying to oversaturate things, and then the iPhone looks a bit better, I think. Skin tone, not so good. And then the Pixel 7 Pro, I think the skin tone looks accurate as what I can see right now. But you can see the background there. It's very grey. Obviously London's grey, but yeah. Let us know what you think of the audio and what you think of the qualities as well in the comments below. Okay, with the light facing me right now, obviously things looks a bit different. It looks much better. If you're looking at them right now, I would say, Samsung looks good. iPhone looks a bit blown out, a bit washed out, overexposed as well. And then I think the Pixel is probably the most accurate one I can notice just looking straight away right now. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments below. Oh, the sun's coming out. Next is stabilization. Again, this is very important, but again, I was quite pleasantly surprised. They all did really well, just general walking pace, and there's no extra stabilization put on here. But the next bit is where it gets interesting, where we crank up all the stabilization settings to the highest settings. So let's step it up. So now we have action mode on the iPhone, super steady on the Samsung, and active mode on the Pixel. And what you get on the Pixel is full HD. On the iPhone, we get 2.5K, I think, or 2.6K at 30. And on the Samsung, we get the full 4K at 30. So back to some general, but while we're looking at this general video here, so we'll talk about that stabilization a bit more. So when you start to use those active stabilization and those extra bits, that's when you start to lose resolution. So one of them can only do full HD, one can do 2.8K, one can do full 4K with those stabilization on. So you have to keep that in mind. One thing I love about this video here is the fact that I can use those telephoto zoom lens on this smartphone. So Pixel 7 Pro, 15 Pro Max, S23 Ultra. S23 Ultra at 10 times just looks really good. And you know why this is important? It's important when you start to, if you're someone like plane spotting like me, you can zoom in like this and still get really cool shots. Or when you go to concerts, there's many times I'm sat there just zooming in and people are just thinking, what is that? Onto low light in video. So here again, it looks really good generally. So if you're thinking, which one should I get? I think, to be honest with you, they all look good. You can still post any of these. The highlights on them is where they differ. So the S23 Ultra, not surprised again, looks really good in terms of low light situation. The 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 7 Pro looks quite similar with the highlights if you look at the light bulb up top. But they all do really well in terms of keeping things stable and focused and stuff like that, and colors look really good as well on all of them. Even using that ultra wide angle lens in low light situations, the color still looks really good. Look at the bin, they still look green. They're not starting to change color because you've changed to a different lens, which is really good. But when you zoom in though, we start to see some changes here in terms of the brightness level. So the S23 Ultra surprisingly looks a bit darker, but keeps that detail as a result because you can still see the lettering properly. In fact, you can punch into the dine-in something that's far on the far end. You can still read that compared to the other ones. You probably can't read it at all on the 15 Pro Max, and then Pixel 7 Pro you can just about. And then with punching even more, you can see the face of this lady walking across and the hat, and the colors on the hat just looks different because they can't handle the colors when you start to punch in and zooming in that much on all of them. But where it matters though is the text. You can still read them, especially on the Pixel 7 Pro, because what do I use Zoom for like this in low light situation? I can use that to read, parking signs and stuff to see how long I can wait in a parking area for. And if I can't read the text using it, what is the point of that telephoto lens? First world problems. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. So that's everything. That's a camera comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, the new iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Pixel 7 Pro. I can't wait to see the next Pixel 8 Pro, because then we're going to bring that back in the mix to see the update and see if it's any better or can it compete in this sort of space that we've got here. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Which one wins in your opinion? In what area would you think one outshines the other? What do you think of the 15 Pro Max? Because there's a lot of noise about this phone. Is it just a hype? Let us know in the comments below. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.